Hey everybody, I'm Bill, and today I'm going to take you on a little tour of the flight sim setup that took me from not knowing a single thing
Taxi on your merry way, and if I need you, I will contact you.
Thank you very much, Van Nuys Ground for Fox Golf.
to becoming a private pilot in the real world.
It's pretty awesome, isn't it? Just so cool.
All right, so this is it. First thing you might notice is that it is very, very simple. I'll take you on a tour of the setup and why I have certain things where they are. But I also stream, so I've got the microphone and the green screen here as well, but it's not a crazy setup. This is exactly what I used to go from an absolute beginner to a real world private pilot. I've had this roughly same setup for about 2.5 years, and it just works. So the first thing is the flight controls. This is the Thrustmaster HOTUS X. It is probably the cheapest flight stick setup you can find on the internet. I bought this pretty much the day that I got X-Plane almost 3 years ago because it was the cheapest and I just needed something that I could plug in and not have to use my mouse and keyboard. That's how far back this setup goes for me, and it has worked perfectly. This is all I used for over a year. The HOTUS has a little twisty stick that acts as the rudder, and that worked fine for a long time. I was not trying to replicate the feel of the plane. So this was simple and easy. It's easy to move out of the way, which I really like. And I can also split up the throttle and the flight stick because it is actually set up to be the throttle on the right side. You can kind of see the little cutouts here. It kind of fits in like that, but I have it broken up like this because in a general aviation plane, as you can see in this 172 here, the throttle is in the middle, which you control with your right hand in the real plane, and the flight stick is on or you hold the yoke with your left hand. So by being able to break those two things apart, I can have my right hand work the power and the left hand work the flight controls. So this has been great. It's not, like super accurate. It's just plastic, but it's held up great. Like I said, 2.5 years of lots and lots of flying in the simulator, and it has held up really nicely. So I had this setup for about a year and a half, maybe even longer, probably closer to 2 years. Then I was almost literally gifted out of the trash from a local aviation university the SATEC radio panel, which I don't actually have working yet for Microsoft Flight Sim, but it does work perfectly for X-Plane. This can tune radios, and there's a few light switches. You got the gear knob here as well. Mags right there. So that is really nice. Once it is working, you can tune the nav. It's just nav radio, as well as transponder and a few other things with these little toggles hidden on the other side of the monitor there. So that came out of a bin that was going to be thrown out, and my friend asked if I could use it. And I said, yeah, sure. And it works great. So I don't know what that's the previous life this thing had, but it was at a flight school, so probably did not live an easy life, but it works fine. So that thing has been very durable. And then I also, in that same sort of transaction, the rudder pedals, SATEC rudder pedals. And this has been a great addition. I've got a little 2x4 back there just so it doesn't smack into the wall. But they're perfectly fine. This left one is broken, so the little spring doesn't work there, so it just kind of flops around. But I haven't really had the need to fix that. Once I'm airborne, the broken brake there doesn't really mean anything. So that is really it from the control of the plane. I've got throttle here, flight stick here, rudder pedals down here, radio here when it's working. These buttons right here have flaps up, flaps down. Small button right there is brakes. the bigger button doesn't do anything. These I don't have assigned to anything. This button I have to call up Pilot Edge, and then the little hat switch I do have for elevator trim, and nothing else is really assigned. I try to do as much stuff on the actual 3D panel as I can. So, you know, heading bug, the lights, again, when this thing is not set up, and there's still some lights that don't work on the radio panel. You know, mixture I have bound to some keys here. So I have not gone the route of trying to replicate a plane, because you really can't without spending a bunch of money, and even then it's not going to act like this thing does in the real world. So I've kept it really simple to separate the real world from the sim and be able to focus on what the simulator does well, which is communication, procedures, navigation. Those three things are what training with a home simulator just is awesome at. The feel of the plane, the, you know, feel of the rudders, the function of, you know, having this be a throttle versus, you know, the little plungery thing. I don't even know what you call that. You know, it's the real plane feels so different that, to me, spending a lot of money on peripherals didn't make much sense. And when I'm done, I can just, you know, move these things off to the side, off the desk, and no problem. So now to navigation. I went with SkyVector for a very, very long time, and it was absolutely fantastic. This second monitor here was an addition just from last week. This is actually my wife's work monitor, and she is furloughed currently, so I hooked it up to my computer. I was using the Mac, and I would have SkyVector on the Mac next to me, and if that was being used or whatever, I would have it on my phone, or I had a Samsung tablet. I have since gotten an iPad with ForeFlight, and that does connect to the sim, so I get, you know, live geo-referencing on real ForeFlight that I bring in the plane. But this is really all you need to start out. SkyVector, you can put in flight plans. It gives you, you know, headings, and it really teaches you how to read a VFR sectional. I cannot tell you how many people I've recommended this to, because it's so good. It's free. You can sign up. You can sign in and have planes saved, so you can actually put in tail numbers of specific planes, and have performance profiles where you can actually get fuel burn, time, distance, and everything based on your exact plane. It creates nav logs, all kinds of stuff, and it's all right here. So this is what I did for a very long time until I got the iPad and ForeFlight, is I would be flying here, you know, usually have some kind of GPS or some in-simulator reference just to double check where I am as I was learning, and then just, you know, use the sectional as it's intended, and that's for VFR navigation. Once you get into IFR, you know, you can obviously do that kind of stuff too, but you'll probably rely a little bit more on in-simulator GPS when that is at least workable on Microsoft. But this is it. Static chart, simulator. Simple flight controls, keyboard, and use a lot of the 3D panel to, you know, interact with the plane a lot. And it helps with memorization with where certain things are in the plane versus knowing, you know, what particular button does what on your setup. That will obviously be different in the plane. Some things like the flaps that I have bound here is just a practical thing. It's much quicker and easier to get the flaps down than having to, you know, toggle off this to reach the flaps. That's kind of a pain. So a few of those things I do have bound to the flight controls, but ultimately my goal is to make the connection between the real plane as little as possible, and work on that stuff with the CFI in the real plane, at least when I was initially starting. So this is all you need. This was like $40. The price gouging after Flight Simulator came out probably has this a little bit more expensive. So, just call it $40 here. That's free. You got a keyboard if you're running one of these simulators, and that's all you need. And that's what I used for the longest time to get to the point where I was, on Pilot Edge for, 400 hours, and then soloed in the real world at 6 hours, and then my cross country flight, which I planned all of that on SkyVector on my second screen. Like my solo cross country flight, I did John Wayne to Camarillo and back through the LAX Bravo, and I had 12 hours total time in the real plane because I hammered this. I knew the chart backwards and forwards because I always had it up. If I needed to reference something, I knew where to look. I knew what the numbers meant. I knew how to get there. I can navigate with a VOR. If I wanted to go to Seal Beach and then Paradise, I knew how to do that before I even stepped foot in the plane. I knew how to tell if I was over here versus over here, by triangulating VORs and using DME. I mean, it's so useful to be able to do this without the georeferencing handicap that I am such a huge proponent of SkyVector. This was my homepage for the longest time because I just would open it up, SkyVector would be up, and I would just, okay, what does that mean? What does that number mean? What does that mean? And I would just constantly be practicing it. And then as soon as I thought like, okay, let's go to San Bernardino and, do a flight plan here, K, S, and A, tab there, and then KSBD, right? San Bernardino. Now we've got our line. I can go up here and create a nav log, and this is very simple and we don't have any performance data, but this gives me everything I need to know for that flight. If I was complete with the information I put in, and I would fly it in the simulator. So there's my nav log. Here's my airplane. Let's fly. And that's really what helped me a lot, is just by being as pretty much frugal as possible, because it forced me to do things that I normally wouldn't have been able to learn had I just gone straight to something like ForeFlight and georeferencing and spent a lot of time and money with fancy controls and peripherals. So there's my setup tour. If you guys have any questions, please ask it in the comments below. Follow along. I stream every week live, so you can see this stuff in action. Join the Discord for ongoing conversations and questions if you have them. And thank you for watching.